Good morning from steamy and clean Beloit, Wisconsin.
Steamy and clean. It is a likewise steamy and clean day here in Overland Park, Kansas. Ladies and gentlemen, it's June. It's June 1st, 2023, and welcome aboard. You listen to the Crushing Iron podcast. This is episode 690.
Yeah, 690, 390.
That's right. I was going back in time earlier. I was like, what are we? 333, 334. Listen, it's been a long week. If you've got kids and they're out of school, that you know that the first week when they're not going to school and the schedule is all like totally different, it's an adjustment period. It is a huge adjustment period, and this is that week for me. So it's a huge adjustment period. No school. So you got camps, you got other things to do. So yeah, big adjustment period. But yeah, it's nice and it's the sun. Listen, the sun is out. I'm guessing things are clean. We got some rain yesterday, but it's steamy. And it's gross and it's humid. But you know what? It's June, right? And it wasn't 2 months ago we were all bitching and moaning about how it wasn't going to be, how it was too cold. We were over it, and now we're already complaining that it's too hot. That's what we do because we're athletes and we want everything to be perfect weather. But no, it's a solid day here. Hope you're having a solid day wherever you are. A decently busy racing weekend coming up. You got, I think, the televised, either on Facebook Live or Outside TV, Ironman Hamburg, which was billed to be a pretty sweet contest between Jan Frodeno, Max Newman, and Alistair Brownlee. But it looks like Newman and Brownlee have bowed out. And it's just going to be Jan as the big name. So it'll be interesting to kind of watch him come back at his first full distance that he hopefully finishes, since I think Roth was maybe a year or two ago where he didn't finish, pulled out on the run. That'll be exciting. You got Blue Ridge 70.3 stateside. You got Hawaii 70.3 as well. So again, it's a big weekend and a big racing month with Des Moines the following weekend, Eagleman, and all kinds of races all over. So exciting stuff. Looking forward to delivering today's podcast for you. If it's your first time tuning in today, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcast in general. Tons of valuable. So we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes looking at the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to world championships, and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we use the feedback loop we have with them and training peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question, we'll let you right in. Awesome people, fantastic community, solid resource in a overcomplicated sport. This is a great venue to ask questions and get solid answers, from races to gear, technology. Just a great place with awesome people that have been around the block and done plenty of things, all kinds of races, many accomplishments, and willing to share some of their wisdom with you for free, pro bono. You got this. And we'll go in there about once a month, like we did this last Tuesday, and do a Q&A, answer as many questions as we can. But that's it. No sponsors, definitely no ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to do our best to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah. You brought up that Facebook group. It's been a little spicy lately.
Spicy. We got people doing well checks on us with our usage of cuss words. You got people that are picking up on our trolling. Listen, like I said in the and if you're not on the Facebook group and you're not on Facebook, for one, kudos, because I wish I wasn't either for the most part. But as I commented yesterday, somebody went in there was it last week or something, and did was kind of trolling us on our most frequented phrases and comments, or what both you and I have our tendencies, right? We're kind of a little bit of a roast, and you had the great idea to lean into it. So we did. We leaned into it hard on the last podcast, and as I said in my one comment yesterday, we just kind of felt like you guys were yelling at us from the front row of Tin Roof, telling us to play Freebird. Yeah. So we obliged, and we played a little bit of a Freebird for you. But not that today, but yeah, it's a fun group, and it's a great group. We might not comment a bunch because we're busy doing other things, taking care of our athletes, but we do pay attention, or are glad for those of you that appreciate what we do and like the raw, authentic, just straight up stuff that we give you. So it's funny, like when I tell people what I do for a living, I ask about the podcast, they ask how long it takes to edit. And I was like, well, we don't edit. Like occasionally, like we have like a technology, mishap or things cut out, you have to do the editing. But for the most part, it's just raw and real. We just start it and then go for it. Outside of our 2.5 hour pre-show production meeting where we outline things in a Zoom call and dry erase board, outside of that, we are free flow.
Yeah. Well, we just, like I said, we were talking before the cast about keeping it real. It just sort of just not trying to be somebody you're not. And I mean, that's the key to everything right now. I mean, we've done 690 podcasts, dude, and we just keep going. And if we were trying to be somebody else, and, I always know that it's like, shit, I know I've already talked about this, but like, how I was talking to, the other night, I was watching this guy and he was talking about how when you go see a comedian, it's different than going see at Leonard Skinner or something where you want to hear Freebird. When you see a comedian, you don't want the same joke the next time, right? You want new material all the time. But if you go see a band, you want to see the hits. And not that this is anywhere near comedy or music, but it's kind of interesting to think about that podcasts, you want to be new material, but Jesus, man, my memory's only so good. I can't, I kind of like focus on some things that are true to me. And, you try and keep it completely fresh. I think we do a good job of that. I don't feel like we overlap all the time, but it's just almost impossible not to. But and to think that you can is like really makes things difficult. And if you're trying to be somebody you're not, either here or on the training course, it can make for a difficult road.
It can make for, but yeah, I'm happy with where we are personally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not in my training, I'm not, but like, we put out a lot of good material, man.
June, July. I mean, yeah, you're 3 months and 2 weeks away from Wisconsin. You got loads of time.
Oh, I know.
Plenty of time.
I know.
Just don't try to be somebody you're not. You want to go into that topic first, or do you want to go into the transitional type of year we are in right now when it comes to the fact that spring's gone? We said goodbye to that last weekend or the weekend before. It's just hot. It's gross. The humidity's higher. The dew point's higher. Not even high as it's gonna get. But it's nasty out. So which one do you want to tackle first?
Well, let's go into that. We can keep the other one kind of hovering over the top of the whole thing.
Top of mind, if you will. Yeah, that was actually one of the summer who gets our tips and does all kinds of other stuff for us. Well, most of the stuff for us when it comes to camps and social media and everything else. So it was like for a tip, and I said, just from personal, obviously I'm in Kansas. It's been warm here, but we've actually had some like fairly cool weather, like this last weekend for Memorial Day. I mean, it was warm, but the humidity was low. And that, honestly, and there was a slight breeze, that makes all the difference in the world. The humidity is low. It really does. Like, I'd rather have it be 85 and low humidity than it be 75 and high humidity, high dew point. And that's the time of year we're in. And we need to have this conversation every year, but we always talk about it differently in another year of learnings and growth and things that we've gained personally from our own training, but also more specifically from athletes. But what I was adding in the tip that I think she posted on Instagram, maybe some of her other social media outlets, is one of the biggest things you see that's problematic this time of year is a couple things. One is it is getting hotter, right? Most of us, no matter where you are, it's getting hotter. Or at least in the U.S., it's getting cool. It's getting cool in other parts of the world. But for us in the U.S., it's getting warmer, right? Regardless of it, whether it was going from 50s to 70s or 60 to 80s or 70s to 90s, it's getting hotter, right? Not just getting hotter, but the other types of things that go around, that come with being at summertime, because it's here, spring is gone. The higher humidity and higher dew point that really do have a significant impact on your training, on your RPE, on your heart rate, on how you recover, the amount of fluids that are needed, and honestly, just day-to-day life, right? If you're scooting around and you're not stuck in an office, you're doing things, whether it's yard work outside or doing things in the neighborhood, it's hot, right? It's no more just going out for a nice, refreshing. I took my dog Waffles for a walk 2 days ago, middle of the day. It was like 82, which isn't that hot for here this time of year. And after 1 mile, he was smoked. Whereas in like the wintertime, sometimes in the morning we'll go on like 3 or 4 mile walks and he's totally fine. Or like 35, 40. He got up to, I think it was like late winter, early spring. He got in like a 6.5 mile run with me. Great. But 1 mile, toast, right? Totally toast. And that's what you see a lot of athletes. And I've seen that this morning, just going through Training Peaks, looking at athletes, comments. And, as a coach, I read comments first to get context over the content, right? Content being the data, context is the commentary before you look at it, right? Because if you have just a blank Training Peaks, comment box with nothing and you see, a 35-minute run that usually gets like, a 9-minute pace with a 140s heart rate, and you go in and look at it with no commentary and you see it's a 925 pace and a 150 heart rate, you're not alarmed, but you're like, hey, how we doing, right? Are we super stressed? What's going on? Did you eat right? Did you refuel? Oh, I just, and then you also look at like time of day, 1 o'clock. Okay. One of the worst times of the day possible to run in, higher humidity, higher dew point, all these things. So it all has an effect on us. And one of the problems you see this time of year is, and it kind of just falls in line with obviously the most popular time of year to race is the time of year where it's warm out, right? The warmer it is around the U.S., especially, the more races are because it's an outdoor sport that we do. Same because you want water temps to be higher. So you're in the thick of the season, right? Volume is ramping up. When people ramp up their volume, they also like to ramp up intensity, right? They don't do it volume first, intensity second, like you're supposed to. They just do volume. And what they also add onto it is intensity. But what you find, obviously, when you're racing at higher humidity, higher dew point, think about this, right? And I use this example a lot with athletes is think about, or any other time of year when you live and train at sea level. And then 2 days later, you fly out to somewhere, right, that's high altitude. You're impacted immediately. And you shouldn't, and most people don't, right? Because they know, because they're actually traveling somewhere different. Well, I know I'm going to be impacted by the altitude, so I shouldn't expect my numbers to be great. In fact, the first day or two, I might actually feel okay, right? Like you might be feeling right now. I might feel okay, right? Because you've had so much blood still and red blood cells, everything built up in your system from living at sea level that it takes 2 to 3 days to actually kind of run for the altitude to run its course. That's why if you read about acclimating to altitude, you'll hear basically 2 different types of approaches. You either fly in the day before, so your body doesn't really know that it's at altitude the first 24 hours because your body is still full of oxygen. It's not so oxygen deprived. It's red blood cell rich. You're ready to rock. Or a week or longer. Which isn't really helpful for most people. Most people can't take off an entire week. But what happens is that after that 1 day up to a week period, you start to go into a deficit before you acclimate to the lack of oxygen, where depending on the altitude you're in. So think about that scenario. That obviously is very easy to wrap your brain around because you're traveling somewhere where it's expected. Well, if you're staying at home, right, and you just wake up to do your normal thing, you don't check the weather. Right? Or you look outside and you see it's not raining, or you just look at the temperature. It could be 85 degrees, 50% dew point, or 50% dew point, or 50 dew point, and 45% humidity. And that's a pretty breezy run. Or you could see a little bit warmer temp, but it might be 99% humidity, 72 dew point. And at that point, it's almost counterproductive to even do any intensity because you can barely breathe. It's all moisture, right, in the air. So that's one of the things you have to be very, very, very careful of. Not to mention the added hydration, right? Not just before, right, because you're about to go outside and sweat it all out the first mile, but also during, and then not just during, but after, when we've all gotten accustomed to, right, not carrying a handheld with us, not fueling before, maybe doing too many fasted workouts, right, when you wake up in the morning when you're already dehydrated. And then people are adding on volume, and again, they're adding on intensity, where the last 3 weeks maybe you've been doing 3x3, 3x4, 3x5, intervals, whether it's zone 3, zone 4, zone 5, and that was in cool weather. And now, because you're just stacking blocks together, it's hotter where you are and you're extending it. But what happens is the stress of a 7-minute interval is probably the stress of a 10-minute interval, and that adds up. So there's just a lot of things to kind of pay attention to right now in terms of volume, in terms of intensity. And then we'll both provide a few tips to kind of help you get accustomed and acclimated to the new heat, humidity, higher dew point, and just being able to kind of not just train better, but if you can train better, you can race better.
Yeah, man, it's been hot in the house. Like I sleep upstairs, and to try and get the temperature even is impossible here. So I've been sleeping at a hotter temperature too, and I think that's having an effect on me, which has been interesting because first of all, I'm not sleeping as well, and it happened quick. You know, it kind of like the cool nights went away a little bit, and so the windows can't be as open, and then of course, you know, you get the allergy thing going or whatever. But yeah, it's the hydration piece is always huge to me, and it's very interesting because, I mean, let's real talk here, man. As I get older, it's harder for me to drink a lot more water, and especially if I'm drinking coffee. So it's like a catch-22 a lot of times. You know, I used to be a huge water drinker, and I still am, but not to the level. And, you know, everyone I kind of follow, whether it be, you know, strength and body conditioner type people or athletes or whatever, they all claim that we're probably not drinking nearly enough water. And especially, I think it's one of those deals where you kind of got to, you know, pick it up, and then your body's not used to it. And a lot of us are getting older, and I don't know, there's something going on. But anyway, it's like, it's very difficult to keep that level of intensity with your hydration, but it's so important, I think. I mean, and especially when it happens so quickly, because it does seem like it happens quickly here. It gets like 2 days ago, it was really nice, and then, or 4 days ago, and now it's like super hot, you know? So it's really difficult to pull back in those situations for me. I'm sure a lot of people are the same. You just don't want to see it, right? You don't want to see everything that's looking good all of a sudden kind of look worse and be more difficult. I mean, you talked about waffles. I take Maddie out in the back. She's doing a lot better, by the way, for everybody that asked. I take her outside in the morning just to lay on the, you know, the patio, and she's just sucking gas out there already. It's getting hot for her. So, yeah, I mean, it matters, and it's just, I don't know about the physiological parts of it, but all I know is that you have to adjust some way, and I'm sure you've got some tips.
Well, you know what? First off, I'm glad Maddie's doing better.
Yeah.
You know, I can sympathize in that area. But one of the it's interesting you say that about getting older, right? Because let's be honest, you're not that old. I mean, we walk around places and people think we're like 2 years apart, but a lot of people do that, right? And I think a lot of people, and I think this is something that, you know, for being really honest, what I've seen and have had conversations with athletes that underhydrate because they are, not because they're older, but underhydrate because they're worried what the scale is going to say, right? In the summertime, we all expect to get kind of a free pound or two, right? Because you're almost constantly sweating, right? No matter what you do, you walk to the mailbox, you're sweating. I was joking with somebody the day in the neighborhood. I was like, yeah, today, you know, it's like, I don't even know why we shower in the morning, because if you shower right when you're done, all you do is walk out and sweat. No matter what, even take a cold shower, you're walking out and you're sweating. You go back outside, you're sweating. You go back out again, let the dog out, you're sweating. You check the mail, you're sweating. No matter what you're doing, you're straight sweating. Everyone stinks this time of year. No matter what deodorant you use, you stink. But a lot of people also who are very, very conscious, overly conscious, or have an unhealthy relationship with weight or the scale, don't like to drink both, like, you know, by 4 or 5 o'clock, right? In the afternoon, they eat early. They don't drink any water because obviously overnight you lose some of that water retention. You can maybe get up once or maybe not at all. And then they like to weigh themselves in the morning. They like to see the least amount possible. So they underfuel and hydrate. Well, then they wake up and they hop right on the bike, or they go straight to the pool, right? Or they go straight to run without hydrating at all. So you're immediately trying to train in a dehydrated state, which regardless of temperature is a bad idea, right? And you might not feel it initially, but you see this all the time with athletes in there, especially how they comment in the first like 2, 3, 4 weeks of real summer temps, is that their quads, their legs are significantly more sore. Started training more? Nope. Have you ramped up intensity irresponsibly? Nope. Are you underhydrated and underfueled? Yes. So you might not feel the impact, right, or the performance degradation during the workout, but your ability to recover is going to be impacted on a huge level. And that won't just impact the run you just, because remember, your workout is only as good as your ability to recover, right? We talked about that, a couple of weeks ago when we talk about, people who overtrain and finding minimal effective dose. And let's see, you work out, because so think about it, right? And I get the analogy and talking about the altitude thing, for one is, it's very easy to wrap your brain around. Sometimes people just can't wrap their brain around this concept for whatever reason it is. But, if you said, hey, I'm going to go do a super hard bike ride today at Threshold for 40 minutes, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and do it again. What would you say? That's a bad idea. Mm-hmm. You're going to be too glycogen depleted. You're going to be too sore. That sounds like a really bad idea. But when you talk about underfueling, underhydrated, people don't talk about it. It still impacts your ability to recover. If you can't recover from your session, it wasn't as beneficial as you thought. In fact, you might just be participating in the digging of a hole that you're about to be in, right? So you have to hydrate before. You can't be so, and again, first of all, just stop weighing yourself so damn much. I mean, that's one, right? Your number on the scale doesn't define you as a person. It doesn't define if you are, I mean, we see this all the time, right? People who might not look like they're overweight, but are insanely unhealthy, right? Mm-hmm. And the biggest is like, you see someone who looks super thin and lean, and like, man, they look great. And then you see this, all of a sudden they pull their hand up with two fingers and take a puff off a cigarette. And you no longer think they're healthy. Even though they look a certain way, you just changed your mind. Same thing goes to how you eat, how you treat yourself, where you are mentally, emotionally, all those things, right? So going back to training is you have to hydrate more, period. And one of the things that I like to do when I did this yesterday, when I know it's going to be hot, as I try to fend off the first bad decision. And I told you before we went live today that I had a not so awesome run yesterday, but it wasn't, I think, that the run performances at Tarrolly. It was just that first run in the heat. It takes some getting used to, right? Your RPE is higher. But what I like to do, and I do this a lot with athletes, and it also makes it very easy to look back on this, is you give the same intervals a lot. It's easy to show you as a coach, right? The benefits, the adaptations, the performance gains you're seeing, versus a certain, compared to the same set of intervals before. And so yesterday I was doing a set of intervals. I did 2 times 10 minutes, right? That was it. 2 times 10 minutes at, kind of middle to high tempo. But before I even did it, I went and looked back at the last 4 to 5 weeks at the tempo efforts that I've been doing. And they were all in the very, very, very low 7s, but my heart rate was in the 150s. So what I did was, instead of taking the pace from that to judge my pace today, because my usual range is 720 all the way up to 8, giving myself a lot of wiggle room. What I told myself when I started is that I'm going to keep my heart rate, no matter what the pace says, in the 150s, because that's what I've been getting in my regular runs when it's been the 50s, 60s, 70s, cooler in the mornings. It's really nice how I did this run yesterday at 1:00 in the afternoon. So I knew my quote unquote performance on the surface was going to be impacted, right? So the speed in which I was going to be impacted from a number standpoint. But I know what I could do to kind of hedge my bet and make sure my second interval wasn't a total implosion was to really, one, rein in the first interval, so not aim as low as I could, but I kept 2 things on my screen, lap pace and lap heart rate. That's it. So I started out my whole goal was to keep my heart rate between 150 and 159, because that's exactly where I've been before. And what I noticed was one, as my heart rate kind of got up to 158, 159, I had to slow down, not significantly, but at least 10 to 12 seconds per mile to keep it in the 150s. So the last few times I've done that same type of workout. Again, intervals a little bit shorter, a little bit longer. I was in the low 7s. Well, these yesterday were in the middle to low 30s. 730s, but my heart rate was a little bit higher, but I was able to hit and nail the last interval within 2 seconds of the first one. So I think it was 738 and the last one was 740, but I had to drop it down and really start, because again, if you're only took a 4-minute recovery jog in between. So again, I'm starting out right second interval. Again, something else that a lot of people don't think about is you start out with your second interval heart rate higher than you were with your first, because you just did 10 minutes of intensity. You really got up your heart rate, and then kept it the same the whole rest of the time. using heart rate as a guide, because that's the one that makes people implode, is once they reach a certain level with their heart rate, it's really, really, really hard to get back. That's why, again, a lot of people will go out in the latter parts of the day and they'll think through mile one, especially when the humidity's high, dew point's high, first mile, right? Because your oxygen is your blood is oxygen rich, right? The reason it's so hard to breathe with a high dew point, like we did that, we talked about before, that race in Ohio 2 years ago, where the dew point is like 74, 75, is because the air is filled with moisture, right? It's just very, very hard to breathe. Well, your first mile, or maybe even 10 minutes, you might look at your heart rate and your pace and be like, man, I am totally acclimated. This is money. I got this going on. Well, it's because you haven't started to really go into the negative, right, or below baseline when it comes to how much oxygen is circulating through your blood. So it's not as hard, right? It feels easy. Well, then 12 minute, 13, 14, 15, you're like, oh my God, I'm going too hard. So one of the best things you can do, again, like I talked about, is looking at your paces, is look to put your pace to HR and find a match, and then just go by heart rate. And just really, you'll be slower. Are you getting unfit? No. Stop the panic. Okay. I wish I had a shirt like that. Stop the panic. Okay. You're not losing performance, right? There is performance degradation on all sides of the temperature coin, right? The 65 degrees is kind of, or even I think it's like 58, 60 degrees is like the happy medium, or is perfect performance, environmental status, whatever you want to call it. But anything above that, you see some percentage of loss. And same thing as it gets colder, because your body has to work extra hard to either keep itself cool, right, when it's hot outside, or to keep itself warm when it's too cold. That's why you don't want to run a marathon when it's 25 degrees, because your body has to use energy and burn calories to keep itself warm. Same thing goes when it gets hotter, right? So always look at heart rate. Use that to make sure you can do that to the best of your ability. And just focus on the feel of it, right? The feel is the heart rate portion. And then the other part of it, for going out for like zone 1, zone 2 runs, start in zone 1. Start in zone 1. The easiest jog possible, especially if it's anything over 30 minutes, because that really allows time for you to start eating into the reserve you built up over the last 24 hours. And you will thank yourself, because what you'll see is, again, if you're looking at heart rate or pace, you'll see your pace maybe stay the same. Hopefully that's the goal, right? To stay the same or get a little faster and keep your heart rate in check. But if you start out too fast, it's game over. You will get so hot and your legs will feel so like rock hardish, like your quads will. Then you'll just slow significantly and raise your heart rate, which is the obviously two things you don't want to. So those are the first two things you can do to kind of fend off the negative effects, not just physically, but I think it really just starts to eat at people mentally and emotionally when they see their paces drop and they think they're losing fitness. But if you're using, kind of your common sense, right? You're pulling on the door that says pull on it, not pushing, then you understand that there's always going to be some kind of performance impact by extreme heat and extreme cold.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know the science behind that, but that's like generally my principle in every workout is to start out slow, or relative to whatever that means. And I wonder if, especially in these conditions, if you're starting to, like you're saying, you're breathing in a lot more, I guess, water, technically, if the dew point's high or something, and it's affecting your ability, your oxygen. That's why you want to kind of. That's why I think the breathing through the nose thing is important, because I think that's built to sort of filter some of that. But anyway, I was thinking too about, you said you're going by heart rate and just kind of watching that and not trying to master everything at once in the situations like this, and not be somebody you're not right now, and just be yourself, and go by heart rate. And I think that's one of the things that I fall into a trap with, is kind of, trying to do two things at once. Like right now, you said, Wisconsin's 13, 14 weeks away. I've been doing all right, but I'm kind of, in that mode where I'm like, all right, time to flip the switch. Flipping the switch right now. And for me, that can mean, all right, that means I got to clean up my diet. That means I got to start hitting it, routine, drinking a lot more water, doing all these things. And my body's like, whoa, bro, what's up here, man? Watching, like my diet, for example, is a huge one. And I tend to think that, because like this week I started trying to eat better, quote unquote, and And what I find is that if I'm starting to work harder and I'm limiting my diet, right? Instead of just kind of eating what I want to eat when I need to eat it or when I feel like it, it seems to affect me. And I honestly think that I have found over the years that stuff sort of takes care of itself more if I don't harp on it. You know what I mean? Like, especially when I start getting into deeper in training and I'm doing a lot of hard stuff, if I start limiting myself all over the place, I just feel shelled. So I just eat what I eat. And then I kind of start of like fine tuning it as I go, and maybe not grabbing an extra cookie or two or whatever the hell it is. And that's when I find like I really feel the best is when things start, just kind of coming together, and I might be eating a ton because I mean, the shit we do, deep in training, that's a lot of energy we're burning, and we need to refuel. And to try to, go light on that, or to not drink as much water and things of that nature, I think really puts a strain on your body and makes it work harder, and sometimes has the opposite effect. Because I can just, I know that once if I'm really hitting a groove and I'm feeling good and doing some heavy work, but I'm eating a lot, my body seems to come together better too. And I just think it's like, we put such a strain on ourselves when we're working hard and up in the intensity and going longer, and it's getting hotter and all these kind of things. And if you're trying to, be sparing with a lot of, what you're putting in your body, I think that can put more strain. So it's almost like a double whammy in a way. It's almost like you got to fuel. It's like trying to drive with, it's kind of that oil analogy or something. It's like going low on oil and being like, we don't need oil yet, or, but just to kind of keep that thing top so it's not burning so much.
I think you brought up a really, really good point that we've talked about before, but it can never be brought up enough is, are you fueling for performance or are you fueling for your physique? Mm. And that is a huge issue in triathlon with athletes that say they want to perform well, but are so self-conscious and are really only doing it because they think they have to look a certain way. Now, if you're getting into the sport and you're doing the sport just to stay healthy and look the way you want to look, then that's 100% totally fine. Do it. Live your life. Like, your body, your choice. Do what you want to do. But if you want to perform, right, and we talk about this a lot, and I'm always like, one of the biggest things I harp on is like, stop underfueling. Stop underfueling. Like, and this is another good example is you've got athlete A, right, who wants to go into their hour and 15-minute workout underfueled and not take in. I'm afraid to take in too many calories because that then I might put on 0.000 kilograms, and then that might really affect whatever else is going on in your life or whatever else is you're worried about. So you underfuel, you don't fuel enough, then you don't take in the right stuff afterwards. Well, you probably had to cut your hour and 15-minute ride short because you didn't have enough energy to do it. And then you under-recovered afterwards because you were too afraid to take in the fuel because it was just an hour. It's just an hour and 15. It's no big deal. And so the next day, the workout you just did suffered, right? So you're not gaining any performance. And then your inability to know or not to know, to act accordingly, to recover, impacts your ability to perform higher the next day. That's honestly a lot of triathletes. Athlete B, all right, I'm really trying to get better. I'm really trying to put more volume in. I know I'm going to ride, for an hour and 15 minutes. Say maybe me ride a little bit earlier, so I'm gonna stock up on the right amount of carbs and sodium and water before I do my ride. And then you're midway through, you're halfway through. You're like, man, I feel great today. This is awesome. You know what? I'm going to extend this out. Maybe do an hour and 45, 2 hours because I'm feeling really good today. So you're topped off on fuel, so you ride longer. You're doing a great ride. You are recovered, right, because you fueled well during and you fueled well after because you're more worried about the performance gain than the physique. And so you gained that day, and now you have the ability to gain the next day. So you do it again. So in two different scenarios, you have, athlete A who's a -2, right, who didn't gain on one day or might have lost, which might be their goal, might have lost 1 ounce, which is probably water weight. and then under recovered, and so was ill prepared to perform well the next day. So it's -2 sessions, and then you take the athlete, the second athlete, athlete B, +2. So think about doing that every day, or 8 months out of the year. Think about the athlete that's more focused on fueling to perform, right? To do more. Because that's the thing, right? Are you fueling to do more? Are you taking in less so you only have the ability to do less? Because doing less isn't going to get you where you want to go in most cases. And so you said it, like there's 2 times a year you never want to, like, and again, in my opinion, there's 2 times a year you just don't want to try and really ramp up the cutting of weight. One, summer hits, right? Because you're already having a stress, whether you like it or not, from the heat. We talked about just not sleeping as much, right? Because depending on what kind of house you live in or where you live, you're already lacking, right? Stress is already higher. It's hotter outside. Your 40-minute run, right? Zone 2 3 weeks ago compared to this week's going to be significant, maybe not significant, but it's going to be more stressful on your body. Even if you just ran 7 days a week and they're all 45-minute runs, you're doing it now versus doing it 4 weeks ago, the stress is a lot higher. And that's impactful on everything that you do. Same goes for, and that's why you don't want to just try and cut weight in the time of year. Again, your body is stressed. It needs more. It doesn't need less. It needs more, right? That's why people are sick. Like, fuel your body. It needs nutrients and things to take care of itself. Don't starve it. And then also don't eat junk, right? Which again, like the cycle that we all get in is you feel like crap, eat like crap, get crap. That's it. And so and then you do the same thing over and over again. That's why it's so important when you're sick to fuel yourself well. Eat, what's anyone tell you? Oh, you don't feel well? Yeah, hit up the Wendy's drive-thru. You will feel so much better.
Yeah.
Sleep like a baby, heart rate will go low. It's really great for your body. Hell no. They're like, have some orange juice, maybe have a smoothie, have some whatever it is. It's all healthy. Fuel yourself to get better. So however you want to frame that, fuel yourself to get better right now, or just not to get better, to be better. Another time of year is when you're hitting people are so worried about getting into, I really want to hit my race weight, when 99.9% of you have no idea what your ideal race weight is. You just pulled it out of not really a calculator, but you pulled it out of the aesthetically pleasing physique calculator that you think looks good to you in the mirror. And you assume that's what's going to look good to you, or that's what's going to be best for you performance-wise. But you can see this through all types of it, is that the longer you go, the stronger you need to be. Not the more fragile, the stronger. The stronger you need to be, okay? Especially for 7.3 and long course athletes. So you don't want to try and cut weight during your final 3 to 4 week race block to hit race weight. Because again, your highest volume, highest intensity block, you're now going to cut fuel. Again, your highest intensity block, your highest volume block, the most demanding, where you want to reach your peak, now is also your goal to under fuel. They don't make sense. It doesn't make sense, but yet people do it every single year, and they wonder why on race day they feel weak, and they feel. You and I have commented before. I have, but when they do the interviews before Kona, and they talk about athlete, they show every athlete. Sometimes I look at it, so I'm like, man, I don't know how they're going to make it through race day. They don't look like they're going to be strong enough to make it through. And you see that a lot with triathletes, that they just, and they get more injury prone. So again, fuel your body for performance. If that's your goal, if your goal is just to do the sport for weight loss, then more power to you. Get healthy, stay healthy. But again, take care of your body. And that goes with, again, how you fuel, but also how you treat it when you train, right? And that goes for swimming, cycling, especially, when you're going out and you're running in the heat of the day. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say a theory about, you mentioned when you're not feeling good or you're sick and you're reaching for crap and everything like that. I've had this long-standing thought about that, is sort of you probably got in that situation because you were eaten something that wasn't right for you, or it probably added to everything, right? So in my thoughts, I'm thinking, as we detox that shit, we end up starting to crave it. So I think it's just very difficult sometimes, because the last thing you want to do when you're sick is to eat healthy food. I feel like it's just like one of these things, it just doesn't seem to line up with how you feel and what your body is craving. So if you're detoxing crap, you're probably going to start craving crap, at least for a couple days, right? So it's a detox process. But I love what you said about underfueling, because that is so much one of the things, and we talk about it in a race and things like that, Nate. It's almost like you have to fuel before you need to fuel. It's like the old idea of staying ahead of it. I loved your example, because if you're fueled well before a race or a training, and then you get out on it and you're fueling well, and then you feel well afterwards, you're doing good, right? And you probably feel pretty good. But we have a tendency to look for symptoms before we need, and it's like staying ahead of it is very difficult because you don't think you need to. It's almost like fueling on a bike, especially like if you're out in like last year when that cold race at Wisconsin, I was really I was force fueling a lot of the time, because it's so difficult to stay ahead when you're not craving something, or you feel like you need it. It's sort of like topping things off the whole day without real, you know what I mean? Like you don't need it yet, but you want to stay ahead of it. So I think that's one of the more difficult things to do. And you said that Kona thing about looking at athletes and things like that. And I think, YouTube is just full of elite type athletes telling you how to do things. And I think what we don't really keep in perspective a lot of times is that, I think of myself sort of as an average Joe, and probably most of the people listening to the podcast are kind of age groupers that want to get better and stuff like that. But to use strategies from people who are really adept at and efficient and really acclimated to being super top end athletes can be weird, because it doesn't really, it's easy for them because I think they can do things in such a way because they've been through a process and or have been doing it their whole lives. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes when somebody like me, turns on an elite runner and he's telling me how to fuel and stuff, and you don't need this or you need this, and it just maybe doesn't work for me sometimes, because I'm nowhere near not only where he's at now, but where he's been his whole life. It's kind of like, I think they take, so a lot of times it's when you're really good at something, you take a lot of things for granted. Mm. And you just kind of gloss over the tough parts or whatever. And so I think that's really I don't want to say well, it is probably a problem out there, because everyone you look to on your YouTube searches is probably somebody that's very proficient, and they don't really know what it takes to be in the weeds, or to be a beginner, or somebody that's struggling with, some whatever, or stress in daily life, because that's all they do is they're, whatever, they're standing on a pool deck 24 hours a day, and they just know things, and they're telling you, they might not be addressing your problem because they just think it's something you should know.
Nailed it. Yeah. And that's why, like, creating, again, like, that's why there's so much information out there that you can read, and also even more so that you can see. And that makes, I think, what every athlete, what every person does challenging now, right? And that, like you're not, especially like the more things that you consume, and the less confident you are, the more likely you are to go astray, because you don't know how to filter out anything. You don't know what is your own. You don't know what works. You're too easily persuaded, and the less confident you are, the more easily persuaded you are, right? And that's just a fact. So like you have to, and you talk about owning your own journey. The beautiful thing about it, and what makes so many things great, is that there's a million ways to get there. It really is. There is no best way. People who just eat meat, you're not right. People who are vegan, you're not just right. People who are in between, you're not just right. There's a perfect way for everybody. And that perfect way usually means finding it on your own, believing in it for your own beliefs, and it working for you to be healthy. And those all have to be sustainable, right? Like you can't have like go way off the people who, again, like talked about last week, 1 week you want to be a pro triathlete, the next week you want to retire. Got to be somewhere in the middle, right? And that what happens is when they ebb and flow, it's a lot of that because they're lacking in confidence, and then most importantly, lacking in direction. So you have to try to really do your best to kind of just, again, put your blinders on and figure this shit out on your own. Have some guidance, have somebody you trust, but not too many people, because then you're listening to too many things. That's like one of the hardest things as a coach, right? Is you're working with athletes, you want them to trust and follow a program. But then there's like, yeah, I've been listening to 20 different podcasts this week, and this pro triathlete out of Belgium is doing this every other Tuesday on his bike. Do you feel like we should be doing that? And I'm like, no, I don't think we should be doing that. I think they should be doing that if they want to, but that's not what we're doing. But like, that's why there's so much information out. Most people, right, that are constantly chasing the next best thing will never reach their best. Ever. They just yo-yo. They yo-yo because they're distracted. They're not confident. Okay. So again, like when you're going this time of year, again, which not just is I think harder on people from a stress management standpoint. I think summer's hard on everybody for a lot of reasons. And it's hard on parents when your kids are out of school. The schedules are flip-flopped. You got, vacations coming up. You got races coming up, and races are not just coming up, but they're closer, right? So that's more pressure on yourselves, and it's hotter outside. It's high stress. It is high stress. There are certain times a year for certain, professional fields that are just higher stress. I remember one of the stats I remember hearing about when I went to treatment was that like the week of Christmas or Thanksgiving or the week after are the busiest weeks of the year, because like they're around family and they have all these like interventions and family, like big like family, get-togethers cause like tremendous amount of stress or relapse or like all these kind of things. Like that's the same thing with all things. Like there's always times here that are more high stress than others. So combine like losing confidence in your own journey, being distracted, not only knowing what to do, and then just not doing it. And then you wonder why you can't get to where you want to go, right? It's like the athlete that takes 2 steps east, 2 steps west, 1 step north, and a half step, 1 step south, and then a half a step north. And you're like, I don't understand how I'm not making any progress. And you're like, you just spent more effort being wishy-washy or not doing anything than just moving forward. Because even a little movement forward is movement forward. And we get so caught up in the exactness of everything or the absolutes, right, of everything. Can't have this. Gotta have that, right, to be successful. Gotta do this. We'll never do that to be successful. There are very few things in life, that like the only thing, I got 2 ultimatums in my life. 1, don't drink. 2, do the podcast twice a week. That's it. I got nothing else, right? Everything else is kind of, easy and flexible. But, for everything else in life where it comes to diet or training, there can't be absolutes, right? And that's just, again, like you have to follow your own path. And then most importantly, figure it out on your own. Because if you figure it out on your own and you figure out what works, that's where supreme confidence lies. Because you know that it's yours. It's not borrowed. It's not read. It's not taken. It's yours. And it's the way, right? It's your way. So figure it out on your own and put the time and effort into that. Don't willy-nilly things. Don't guess you can make it through your run. Don't guess you can make it through your ride. Be detailed about things. Figure it out for you. That's why I like when I cringe when I see people like, so how many calories an hour do you take in per hour? It's like walking through Costco aisles asking for a medical diagnosis. It's no different. Total strangers that don't know anything really about what you're wanting to do or barely even know what that sounds are going to give free information, right? So that's why you always send. That's why athletes, rag us or some of our listeners. We always say it depends.
Mm-hmm.
Because too many people say, this is how it should be. I'm like, and I read things sometimes, and I just have to like refrain myself from hitting, from typing something and saying, I'm like, that's just irresponsible and just straight up false. It's just false. Period. Like, you have to be very careful what you say. That's why we always try to encourage individualization of your own. Do it yourself, right? And athletes ask questions like, should I do this or should I not? Like, that's not, who are you or I to say don't do it or not? Yeah, we can give you advice, but do your thing, right? If that's what makes you happy, do your thing. Like I had an athlete this morning, woke up, email, hey, it turns out, at USA Multisport Nationals, I qualified for, I got a roll down for Aquathon, Worlds in Australia in 2025. I kind of feel like I haven't earned it, but it'd be like one of those like lifetime experiences that I could go do, and I'd have like a whole train, or maybe it's 2024, whole year to train for it. What do you think I should do? And you're like, man, like this is like, this isn't like somebody asking you, where do you get your steaks, right? This is like a legit question. Somebody's like trying to plan for a whole year and then take a trip to Australia for, probably 2 weeks. And all I said, listen, like, participating in any kind of world championship is an honor to be there, regardless of how you got there. And then, for me specifically, anytime you would be able to wear something from your country and represent your country is an even greater one. To me, it just is, right? That's why I think following the Olympics to me is like watching, not following, but not just following the Olympics, but watching athletes stand on the podium and hear the national anthem, to me is the greatest honor an athlete can have. And that's just, again, my opinion. And I told the athlete that, not that we expect him to be on the podium in the Olympics, but I said, so if it was me, that's my feeling on it. Not you should do it, but these are my feelings on it. And then you make your feelings. And if you want to do it, then we do it. Like, that's it. Your own. Who gives a shit if someone doesn't think you should be there? Right? Do your thing. Like, that's just, we get so worried about, again, what other people are doing that we don't do ourselves. And then we end up getting nowhere. And then you know who we blame? Other people, right? Just own your own journey. Beware, take yourself where you want to go. But that also takes extra work, right? And it takes, going back to, the fueling part. And it's just like, I think we lose so much. I'll just be honest. We've lost so much of the ability to think for ourselves and be objective, just on common sense stuff, because we're always thinking of like a higher level reason than the most obvious reason in front of us. It's always got to be high level or some grand thing. I had an athlete conversation this morning. Another thing that going back to like the heat acclimation stuff. I'm like, you've been swimming outside for 2 weeks. Yep. And you're asking me why your pace has gotten slower. Yep. So you do realize that the same oxygen you breathe when you swim is the exact same oxygen you breathe when you run and when you ride. So the higher the temperature, right? Usually the hotter the water degrades performance. Higher humidity degrades performance. Higher dew point. In fact, swimming, to me, outdoor swimming, is the hardest thing to transition into. Period. Is the hardest thing, because you could still move at a certain rate because your body isn't quite as hot as it would be running or even riding, because you're getting, riding at you're getting a breeze and cooled off from the wind you're creating by the speed you're going. But this, you can move very fast, and obviously your body's getting cooled by the water, but you're already oxygen deprived just from the nature of swimming, right? Because you breathe and you don't normally, most athletes can't exhale at the same rate that they inhale, so they can get a big inhalation to get the maximum amount of oxygen. You're already oxygen deprived swimming, and then you're only able to take in less oxygen swimming because of the higher humidity, higher dew point, and higher temperatures. No wonder you've gotten slower. It's impossible to be as fast. I know that I'm at least 6 to 7 seconds slower per 100 when it's really, really, really hot out and the humidity is high and the dew point's high and you're swimming outside. Same thing, but as athletes, we love to look at like a higher level. I just don't think my swim's clicking right now. I really think that there's something going on with maybe you should change things up. I'm like, what? You change things up and go inside. Go inside and swim. And it'll be 10 times easier. So again, like you have to pay attention to details, and you, again, always, go through the triage through the most obvious things. Right. And as a coach, that's really your job, is to help them triage the most obvious things. Have you been sleeping enough? Well, no, I haven't. Have you eaten right? Well, no, I haven't. Have you, been super stressed? Well, yeah, I have. Have you doing this? Well, yeah. Okay, well, maybe that's having an impact. Okay, yeah, you're right. Instead of, yeah, I really think I should change up the intervals that we're doing. I'm just not really feeling like I'm hitting my numbers right. It's always, again, like the stretch that we go to first. I'm not sure why that is, right? I wish I could have the answer to that. But we always go to the stretch, or we go to the extreme, right? We got to change things up. I got to move. I got to stop doing this. I got to quit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I don't like to do this. It's like we always reach for like the knee jerk. The knee jerk reaction is the go-to, not like the most obvious thing, which is we're usually right in front of our face. But again, like I think a lot of triathletes their minds are warped that way to always kind of overanalyze and basically skip past the most obvious, right? It's like we look for the very finite detail, right? And it's like, those pictures and images that are all made up of like one thing, so it's like, the number 23, a very tiny number 23 is they put so many of them in specific shapes to make like an image, right? Let's say like an image of Michael Jordan. Well, the triathlete is the one who's got their eyeball right up on the paper, and all they see is the number 23. That's it. Mm-hmm. But if you like take a step back, then you see the whole picture. But again, most triathletes, like, it's not big picture. It's not the obvious. It's like, how close can we get to the lens so our eyelashes can feel it, and then really try to find, really pick through and find some minute detail. I think it's partly because I think most triathletes, like, we think we're very special. We're very special. We need specific things. We don't operate a certain way. That's just who we are, right? We just need special things. But most of the time we just need a little bit of extra common sense, a little bit of objectivity, and to pay a little bit closer attention to the most obvious things around us, like it being hot outside.
Yeah. I think we tend to take ourselves too seriously and put so much weight on the race isn't today for most people, unless you're my buddy John Natochi, who has weekday sprints all the time. No, but seriously though, the race isn't today, and to put that kind of sort of lean that kind of importance on a workout when it is going to be tougher, like all the stuff you just said, you're facing a lot of elements, change of temperature, dew point, all the 9 yards. But, my thing has always been, it's just like, this is a process. And for me, the goal has always just been be at my best, feel my best on race day, my big races, whatever. You just want to feel good. So just go through the work, do a lot of work, take care of yourself, don't take yourself too seriously, and show up on race day feeling the best you've felt all year. Takes a lot of pressure off.
Yeah, and have a fueling strategy.
Yeah, and fuel.
Don't prepare for.
Try as much as you can.
What's that?
I always say just, you kind of just see how much you can get in and still feel good,
That's really most people's goal. Yeah.
Don't skimp. See where your limit is, and then come backwards.
Grab a Fifth Avenue. Yeah, do something like that. I had a lot of Fifth Avenue love lately. You're welcome. I'll probably buy like a case of those for a tri camp, and it'll be my part to ministry to the masses on the greatness that is the Fifth Avenue candy bar. Seriously, most triathletes, I just can't get my run down, man. Just can't get it down. It's major GI issues. I think I need to, really change things up, and I may probably run a little bit more. It's just I can't get my run under control. I probably more track workouts, probably do a couple 25 milers. What was your fueling strategy? Well, I was on my race day, I strolled through the local Quick Trip and, did a couple grab and goes and grabbed a couple bottles of water, and, they got me through it. Mm. It's like, seriously, most triathletes are like my son in a fucking Quick Trip, picking out, a drink and something else. Like, that's, if you're not from like the Midwest, Quick Trip is a gas station.
Yeah. And I have confidence in Quick Trip. They can feel you, but you just got to know what it is.
That's like Hayden's thing. Like most kids want to go to the ice cream shop. Hayden's like, can we go to the Quick Trip?
Yeah.
What's your deal with the Quick Trip? And then he doesn't even get exciting stuff. Like last time when he got like gum and some Cheez-Its. I'm like, dude, we got that at home. And I just paid quadruple for it at the Quick Trip. Plus they got like, pizza and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, most triathletes, like, again, I think I said this on maybe a previous podcast or in a Zoom call, is like, if you can buy it at Costco, it's not fueling. Okay. Like the Gatorade Zero, like enough said, zero. Or like you're buying like, 10 different, bottles of, Glacier purple ice at the local store. That ain't enough either. Like you gotta like nail this stuff down. You gotta nail it down. You can't just willy-nilly it and then blame it on the run every damn time. Seriously, the run gets the baddest rap.
Yeah, it does. Why do I have this picture of you eating the Fifth Avenue with a fork and a knife right now?
Dude, I wish I could. You can't take a knife to it though. And I mean, you got to be very, very delicate.
You might need a cheese knife for that thing.
Oh yeah, maybe. But like the way you eat at Fifth Avenue is very similar to the way you have to eat a Butterfinger. You can't, and we'll end it on this because this is very important. You can't over unwrap.
You can't over unwrap.
No, you can't. You can't over unwrap. What I mean by that is you start at the top, like with Fifth Avenue, Butterfinger, any of the more brittle, fragile, delicate type of bars. Right? I'm talking about kind of Snickers where you could throw it against your truck and run over and it'll still be the same shape. Talking like the very the delicacies, right? The Fifth Avenues, you have to tear at the top, only roll down the amount you're going to bite off, because then it keeps the rest of the bar intact. If you over roll down, you risk premature breakage, and it's on the floor. You take a bite, you thought you had enough, and then you nibble down, then all of a sudden, boom, floor. And it doesn't just sit on the floor, it shatters like a piece of crystal. And there went 10% of your bar. So you have to be strategic about not under wrapping, and just be very, very delicate with the Fifth Avenue. Because listen, they're hard enough to find, right?
Oh, they're hard. They don't get the prime placement for sure. If even in any store, if they're there.
Well, no, because they know that they're like the speakeasy. Like you only know if you know. Like we don't have to tell you. They don't need prime placements. We don't need the extra. Yeah, right. Like if you're a Fifth Avenue lover, you're a low key, humble, set in your ways type person. You don't need we don't need to be on the cash wrap. Okay. Fifth Avenue lovers, we don't need to be on the cash wrap. We don't need to be on the grab stand next to the debit card machine where you see Rolos and mints and Snickers and M&Ms. The total bandwagon candies.
Yeah, discerning gentlemen.
Yeah, we know exactly.
It's like
Fifth Avenue for gentlemen.
I totally imagine this is like something that like the Illuminati owns the Fifth Avenue, and they go to Quick Trip owners and they're like, well, we don't need that. We don't sell. You're carrying Fifth Avenue. You're just gonna have it here. You have no choice, young man. Yeah,
in the back, on the bottom, below the before the max packs of chapsticks. In like their little small like Ace Hardware section, they got like WD-40. An 8-pack of chapstick, the condoms, all the weird like accessory stuff. This to the side, Fifth Avenue, bottom shelf. And it's just you don't need extra advertisement. You just know if you know. Like we want to serve it to the people who love it, not the people that think they want it, because you'll over under wrap it and then it'll end up on the floor. So again, go out and get yourself a Fifth Avenue. You might find them right next to the crystal clear Pepsi, but they're out there.
Oh,
so you got to do your diligence.
I go to this supermarket. It's named Woodman's here in Wisconsin, and I was looking for apple cider vinegar. Bragg's the mother, and they don't have it in the regular aisle. They have it in like the furthest aisle away, like hidden. But I went over there, and they had the greatest shit over there. And I probably didn't look hard enough because they probably had Fifth Avenues over there.
It was probably right next to it.
They had just some real, the coconut oils and the really interesting stuff over there. There's probably Fifth Avenue right around there.
Probably had some fucking caviar in there. They probably had like all the legit.
Yeah, it was legit aisle. That's what it was. And nobody ever. There was dust everywhere. Nobody was even in there. It was like an old storage room. It wasn't. May not have even been in the store. I may have gone through a vortex of some kind.
I'm telling you, they got like 5 aisles. Aisles 1 through 4, and then like if you know, you know, and that's the aisle. And you can find the Fifth Avenue bars right next to the White Truffles. That's it. Easy enough. Just like this podcast. Hope you enjoyed today's topic. Make sure you fuel yourself appropriately. Take care of yourself in the heat, and also own your own journey. And then I hope you appreciated our rundown of how to appropriately eat at Fifth Avenue. You're welcome. I should go ahead and buy some stock in that as well. I can see those prices going up. And as always, we love you. We appreciate you. Race fast. Race your race. The only thing you can control this weekend is your effort and your execution. As always, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need more info on our camps, you can go to the camp tab and find the one that's right for you. And as always, the coaches tab is the same. You're looking for coaching for the rest of the year. You're struggling with what direction to go to with the races you've signed up for. You bought a plan. You have no idea where you are in it because you've had injuries or time off or lack of motivation or sickness. We got coaches that can help you out for that. So click on the coach tab, find the coach that's right for you. And if you need anything from Mike specifically, he is on aisle 5 at CrushingIron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me, aisle 6, C26coach@gmail.com.
All right, buddy. Enjoy your day.
All right, man. See you, dude.
See you.